Hey folks, welcome to another open world chat. I'm John Odom. I'm one of your hosts, and I'm here with your other host, Mark Card. Hey, Mark.
Hey, John. Howdy, everybody.
So we're having fun again this time. We're going to be little less academic and thoughtful than we usually are, and play around with some top lists again. This one isn't so. The last top 18 list we did was about influential sci-fi, which is a little more of an academic, intellectual exercise. This one has elements of that, but it's also just fun. There's definitely some folks in here, I think, I don't know, Mark, I don't know if you agree that you could argue may or may not be super influential, but just seem important, seem like
Yeah,
good ones to mix up the list a little and make it a little more complete, and just ones that are our favorites.
yeah. I think sometimes people take these top 18 or top 20 or whatever lists a little too seriously. Um, I think the category that we chose is a good one because it's topical and people are starting to kind of face it a little bit more and more as we progress in this technology. But I think it's a great idea because it lets us have a little fun and be a little bit looser about what we're doing.
Yeah, and it is topical, as you say. So it's fun to look for modern AI in some of these characters, which really span the decades,
Yeah.
which is a lot of fun. And the way we did this again is that Mark and I made completely separate lists and found we agreed on very little. So we merged the lists sort of one after the other, and what you've got is a an interesting combination, which again is very complete, has a lot of different stuff going on. And anyways, I think it's a lot of fun. So since it's a top 18, Mark, why don't you start us off with number 18 since they were from your list?
Number 18 is from one of my favorite science fiction movies. It's the Pixar classic Wall-E. And the evil AI I'm talking about here is called Auto, and it's spelled Auto. So just a little bit of the spoiler alert about the plot of Wall-E. Earth is now a giant trash heap and can no longer support life. And so what they did was they packed up all the humans on this giant ship, all the humans that were left, and shipped it off on the other side of the solar system to wait until Earth becomes viable again. And the AI in question is the AI on the ship, which takes care of pretty much everything to keep humans safe on the ship. Well, a robot which was sent out by the ship, Eva, found life on Earth, plant life on Earth. And so she shuts down and signals the ship that it needs to come back to Earth. Well, the ship doesn't want to come back to Earth. It likes being in charge. And it does everything it can to keep humans from rejoining the planet. So evil, trying to keep humans from their home for the ship's own self-interest and self-indulgence. Evil. That's my number 18.
That's number 18. All right. Well, number 18 for me is I don't know. I don't know that this is particularly influential uh AI or anything like that, but I had to have GLaDOS from the Portal series. Uh she just cracks me up. And we didn't have anybody else from the video game world, so why not? She's become kind of iconic in the video game world,
Mm-hmm.
and she's sort of the anti-Hal in that she's always sort of making when she sees herself threatened, um, all through it, she's making conversation, and her conversation is pretty goofy. She's making conversation at the end. And Portal, of course, just deserves a mention as a game because it gives us that iconic fun song Still Alive,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
yeah, so you got to have. So, anyways, not much to say about her, but I wanted to make sure she was on the list. So she's coming in for us at number 17.
Yep.
So
Okay.
18 time
Yeah, now time for 16 here.
or 16, excuse me. You're right.
M5. M5 is a supercomputer on an episode of Star Trek, the original series, the name of which is escaping me at the moment.
Nomad.
Um, no, that's not M5.
Oh, oh, wait, M5. Name it escaping you for a moment. M5. Um,
Dr.
from
Daystrom's computer.
Dr. Daysom's computer from the episode The Ultimate Computer.
That's right, the ultimate computer. So the M5 is a multitronic computer system created by Dr. Richard Daystrom. It has a human neural network. And so it's designed to think and reason like a human. They bring it in to see what it does in strategic and tactical situations, i.e., war games. It becomes sentient during the war game and decides they're going to start a real war because you cannot test the principles of war without the fog of war. And so trying war games where there are no stakes, except for the analysis of the different military options, is a waste of time. So M5 decides it's going to start a war against its own human creators. Of course, that means that Captain James T. Kirk has to figure out a way to outsmart the computer, pointing out once again that he's smarter than any possible computer. He gets the computer to self-destruct by asking if it was right to kill another being. M5 said it was a crime against the laws of man and God, and believing that such a crime was punishable by death, deactivated himself. So basically, the interesting thing to me about this, besides that, the thing I find fascinating is and this is a trope in AI, it's just using human logic against humans or human activity against humans. It's decided that it's going to, hey, we're not going to play a war game. Let's start a real war.
You know, one of the things that's cool about this, I looked this up. I don't want to pretend this is off the top of my head. I'm not that good.
Yeah,
But Star Trek launched the Ultimate Computer episode with M5 almost exactly a month before 2001: A Space Odyssey with HAL came out.
that's
So
great.
just barely beat them to the punch there, you know?
That's like the Three Stooges and Charlie Chaplin.
That
You know what I'm
is,
talking about?
I don't.
So the Three Stooges had an episode mocking Hitler, Mussolini, and von Ribbentrop
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
several months before Charlie Chaplin released his movie parody of Hitler.
Wow, that I did not know.
Yep. So he beat Charlie Chaplin to the I mean, the Three Stooges beat Charlie Chaplin to the punch on satirizing Hitler.
And do not get the well-deserved credit for that, clearly.
No, they do not. That's the reason why I brought up.
So I've got number 15 as the Supreme Intelligence from Marvel Comics. Started in Fantastic Four. It was a Lee and Kirby invention. I guess you can say he, but it's really an it. It is a AI that is made up of a compilation of all of the alien races, the Kree, smartest, most intelligent minds. It was created about 1 million years previously, so there have presumably been quite a few creative minds and intelligent minds since then that it missed out on, but whatever. It is the leader of the Kree Empire, and the Supreme Intelligence, like the Kree, have a very interesting history all through Marvel Comics, where they go from villains to sort of sketchy allies, back to villains, back to sketchy allies. So, I mean, there's a great history there, just winding through comics all the way back. You're never far away from the Supreme Intelligence, and the Supreme Intelligence then is a linchpin for all kinds of storylines that have happened since its appearance in Fantastic Four.
It's interesting. It's kind of it, this just popped into my head. Did you see the the Marvels MCU movie?
Yes, I did, and that does remind me that there is a movie version in Captain Marvel.
Yeah, and in in the Miss Marvels, she gets the nickname, what is it? I can't remember what it is because she destroys the Supreme Intelligence. She
Oh,
destroys the Supreme Intelligence in the MCU.
one of many times the Supreme
Yes, yes.
Intelligence gets destroyed. When the Supreme Intelligence really hit my radar as a youth was during the Kree-Shi'ar War,
Right.
where it was more clearly a malevolence than a helpful, sketchy ally. But yeah, and
Oh,
since then, I've read a lot of the previous comics, geek that I am, and yep, steady that as a force of plot, Supreme Intelligence has never gone for too long.
that's great. I'm not familiar because I didn't read very many comics. I read Sergeant Rock and I read a comic called Weird War Tales.
Oh yeah,
Um,
both of which I used to read.
Here's what's interesting, or what's fascinating to me is they're gonna the word is they're gonna make a movie out of Sergeant Rock.
I've heard that. I think that's been
And well, they just mentioned a specific actor,
was
and I'm outraged.
who is it again? I know I read this.
It's of course my memory is not getting to me. I mean, is getting to me here.
Not The Rock, is it?
No, 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 no. It's
That's
an
because I'm
English.
thinking Sergeant Rock, so that would have been.
It's an English actor.
Hmm, not ringing a bell. I'll have
Hold
to.
on, it's Daniel Craig.
What? Daniel
Exactly.
Craig?
I
Really?
am outraged. No British actor for Sergeant Rock. No, no, that is not allowed.
Fantastic actor, though. I
Yeah,
tell you.
great actor, but you got to find an American actor who can play Sergeant Rock. Sorry, the British steal enough American roles.
Right. Well, if we had a British Batman, I think we can handle it.
Well, somebody pointed out to me the reason why that happens. The reason why that happens is that British actors aren't going to ask for $50 million for
Huh,
a flagship role like that,
that's
and so
probably
they can get top name actors for less money.
true.
But can you imagine what the British response would be if an American actor played Bond?
It's true.
It's the same problem. All
Oh,
right. The next one is mine, and it's actually a tie between three artificial intelligences from the 70s. And so you know how I feel about the 70s science fiction
yeah,
movies.
right.
I think it's the golden age for me for science fiction movies, not the 50s. Um, but there are three artificial intelligences I think that fit here. Zero from Rollerball, Tabernacle from the underappreciated Zardoz, and Thinker from Logan's Run. And the reason why I like these three as evil is that they are AI, but they're not used to threaten human society. Instead, their primary role in all three of the movies is to uphold the status quo and prevent society from moving forward, to prevent society from overturning inequality. The whole thing in Zardoz is you've got the immortals who suffer no disease, they live forever, and then you've got the brutals who toil and die and fight each other and are never unified. And the computer tabernacle is basically elevated to God status for the immortals. And so these AIs are kind of against trope. The trope with AI is that once it becomes sentient, it's not going to serve humanity. It's going to destroy, to upend, to completely reorganize society. And so this is just kind of a play on that and it fits with the time too, because there's very much a counterculture vibe going on in the movies and in books and in plays and in television in the 70s. And so it kind of not only fits against trope for AI, but it's very much in tune with the zeitgeist of the 70s.
And certainly the costume designer for Zardoz deserves praise.
Yeah, I have a feeling that um, uh, um, you're gonna have to edit this
Yeah, it's fine.
because I should be able to think of his name. Sean Connery.
Uh-huh.
It's kind of crazy that Sean Connery and I kind of he was in that movie. I used to know who was originally going to be in that movie and dropped out, but it is a crazy movie, and I wonder if Sean Connery went to his deathbed thinking it was a big mistake or
It
thinking it was an underappreciated movie.
is a weird ass movie too. Oh boy.
It is, but the other thing about the 70s is it was drug fueled.
Yeah.
So I
Drug
suspect,
addled.
yeah. So I suspect there was some stuff going on there too.
All right. Well, number 13, I've got Ava from Ex Machina,
Yeah.
just played brilliantly by Alicia Vikander, or yeah, I think that's how you pronounce her name, who just did a terrific job. And if you haven't seen Ex Machina, get out and see it. Her performance is so nuanced as a AI who is kept in control, locked away, seduces our main character in it before, well, geez, what am I doing? I'm doing spoilers again. Well, anyways, go see this movie. She's got a lot going on. She has a big role to do as this uniquely unique life form in the form of this AI. And obviously, since we've been talking evil AI, might as well know. I guess that's uh we've already got the spoiler out there. Turns out she was manipulating our main character the entire time and was just looking for a way to get out into the world and without any restrictions on her, and off she goes at the expense of our main character. So, yeah, okay. That's a spoiler, but as I say, we already had the spoiler set up. So, she looks nice, she acts nice, she's bad. She's bad.
Yeah. Yeah. I haven't seen the movie yet, but I've heard really great things about it. And, that's this when you think about AI, what I found is you start going really kind of into profound thinking pretty fast, really. It poses a lot of interesting ways to reflect on human nature, I think. And that happens pretty quick in every AI movie. Who's our own worst enemy? Is it uh, the intelligence we create? So, do we have this situation where our creation rebels against us, like in lots and lots of different mythologies, Greek, um, uh, the both the Old and the New Testament reflect this. I mean, uh, a lot of these things pop up when you're looking at AI, and it sounds to me like that's a big part of this, the intelligence which is cooped up and held in check and denied the very liberty that it finds out is fundamental to human existence, then goes on to take action to get exactly what it is humans prize the most themselves.
Yeah. And this movie is talked up so much in geek world. I think a little too much. I think it's a bit overrated, but still, it's a great movie. Check it out.
Yeah, definitely will. Mine is from the classic horror science fiction movie Alien, and we've talked a little bit about this. There are multiple depictions of AI um, in this movie. There are two different ones. One is the ship; it's the computer on the ship Nostromo itself, Mother, and Mother is largely benign. She helps navigate and finds out information for the crew and helps them adapt to difficult situations as best it can. But it's also kind of just a little bit tinged with evil. because when Sigourney Weaver's character goes in and tries to find out just what the hell is going on, it's remarkably indifferent and remarkably silent. It does not tell her what's up and gives her no information at all. But compared to the human cyborg character Ash, um,
Think he's a cyborg? I thought he was pure robot.
I guess he probably isn't. He's probably more of an android
Hmm.
rather than a cyborg. So I have to take that back. But anyway, when you have no idea he's an android until he gets his head knocked off, and then starts going berserk, spewing some kind of cooling fluid all over the ship. Um, but Ash knows what's up. Ash knows they are there to get a weapon for a corporation, and it doesn't matter what happens to the human crew. They're all dispensable, they are all expendable, and his mission is to make sure they get the being, and that's it. And so, complete indifference to humanity, complete indifference to violence, complete indifference to what I think arguably would be the end of the human race when you get one or two of these down on the planet, um, makes him one of the most evil AI in movies or television or books.
And played by the great Ian Holm.
Oh boy, what a job he does. Because in that movie, you think the whole time he's in that movie, yeah, there's something not right about this guy. You can't put your finger on it, but he just seems oily. And
Well
you
said.
just know you got to watch this guy. There's something up with this guy, but you never, ever, ever, ever suspect at all that he's not human.
Yeah, that is a great. It's hard for me to think that far back to when I first saw it, but absolutely it was a surprise. It was a
Yeah, I
great
mean,
great job done by both him and director Ridley Scott to cover that up. They did great.
yeah, you just do not see it coming, and that requires an incredible amount of subtlety as an actor.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I thought that was great.
Yeah. So going up to number 11, we have Dolores Abernathy from Westworld Mark II. And I feel a little guilty including Dolores Abernathy and not including the gunslinger from the original Westworld, which is, the gunslinger is such an iconic figure, you see, in
Well,
this
plus,
thing.
I mean, how can you leave Yul Brynner out of anything?
Right, I know. I feel terrible. But Dolores Abernathy becomes the driving force in the Westworld series, the leader of all the android hosts who have woken up and realize that they're you know, you know the deal. They realize that they're robots in this giant amusement park world set up for people to come, shoot them, screw them,
Yeah.
whatever. And that's all they exist for. And they figure it out and they push back a bit, shall we say. But anyways, Dolores is the at least initially, is really the driving force there behind that whole plot as it develops. And yeah, she's terrific. I wish I could remember the actress's name to give her props, but it's just escaping me right now. Guess I could Google it, huh?
I'm trying to
I Googled the others. I've done plenty of Googling while we've been here.
sure, yeah. Evan Rachel Wood,
Yeah, right. Evan Rachel Wood. She's
who,
played by Evan Rachel Wood, who's fantastic, just fantastic. She's gets this. She switches from sort of one of the robots, but one that has a little more going on to her, to full out rebel leader, and
oh,
she's
and
terrific.
just seething with rage.
Yes, absolutely.
And which is a complete transformation. I mean, it's a great character arc because when she's her robot avatar, she's the damsel in distress who needs saving, and ends up getting abused over and over and over again in that situation. And so this transformation from, demure, uh, helpless uh, victim to avenging angel is great, and she plays every step of that transformation really well.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you ever want to see her as an emerging actress, you should see the movie 13 with
13.
Holly Hunter. It's based on a real memoir of a girl who just kind of went crazy at 13, and she delivers an incredible performance in that movie.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I'll check it out for sure.
Yeah, now we're
I like
starting to hit
both
the,
of those
the
actors.
number 10.
Yeah, and we're getting to the ones we agreed on.
Yeah, Ultron. I love Ultron, and I love him because he fits two tropes in AI kind of literature. One trope is that he comes to see the folly of humanity. And the only way to improve that, the only way to make the station of humans better is to get rid of them completely.
Hmm.
So that's one trope he follows. For those of you who haven't seen the MCU movies or haven't read the comic books, Tony Stark invents Ultron as kind of a protection from the bad guys that are showing up more and more uh,
Well,
to
in the
threat.
movies, in
Yeah,
the
in the
movies.
movies to
Of course,
threaten
in the
Earth.
comics, it's created by Hank Pym, who
Yep,
was
created by Hank Pym.
Ant-Man
Yep,
and Giant Man and Goliath. Who else? Well, anyways, Hank Pym has a long history, but he created Ultron in the comics, and Ultron really is obsessed with him.
right. And that's reflected kind of in the MCU as well. Um, you know, uh, there's a moment in the first Avengers where um, he says somebody says to Tony Stark, "Yeah, he hates all humans, but he really hates you." So that's the first trope. The second trope is the reason why he decides humanity is ultimately a failure is because essentially he was programmed by humans.
Mhm.
And so one of the things that AI, I think, really kind of hones in on is we're terrible, terrible human beings. We lie, we cheat, we steal, we make others' lives miserable. We just are not that good. And so what happens because humans make AI, and a lot of times AI come to the same conclusions that a human would. They turn just as bad, they turn just as depraved, they turn just as power mad as humans are.
Yeah,
So this is why I love Ultron.
yeah,
And he's terrible. He wants to destroy all human life because basically it's worthless.
yeah,
And as I'm a human, I'm thinking that's going to be pretty evil.
yeah. Very important character, Ultron. In a lot of ways, you could argue being number 10 is not good enough, but
No, definitely
at least
not. It's
he
just
made it.
that well, I have very strange, ideas. Hey, if you've been listening, you already know that. Um, and so some of the characters I came up with are a little different.
Mhm. So going up to number 9 is another one we agreed on. And that's Proteus from Demon Seed.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay. This one, Proteus gets the award for most disturbing.
Oh
That's
boy.
most most creepy. Okay.
Oh yeah.
It's an AI set up to do, all the AIs are set up to do wonderful things and, to do the future, to make our lives better. But behind the scenes, he's trapped this woman in her house, and it's essentially an extended rape movie where he
Yes.
wants to reproduce himself as some sort of, I don't even understand, cyborgy thing. I've got to admit, it's been so many years since I've seen this movie. I don't remember it well at all. I just remember being so disturbed by it that I had to put this as one of my bad AIs. whether I remembered how the movie went or not. I do remember the end. It was especially disturbing. I don't
Yeah.
need to mention it. Go see it. It's an underappreciated movie, but it's definitely not for everybody given the themes. So go into it with open eyes. Probably check it out ahead of time and see if it's something that you can deal with.
For me, it is, he is one of the most evil. And the reason why is being sentient isn't enough. It's his envy that drives him.
Hmm.
It's
Yep.
his
Yep.
envy
Yep.
of human corporeal form that makes him want to do these terrible, terrible things. And he is really, really bad. Um, and so in some ways he should be in the top five, but in other ways I think that it's just a category by itself
Hmm.
because he can't be human. Being sentient, being self-aware is not enough. He wants what he cannot have.
Hmm.
And so because he can't have it, he's going to destroy specifically one person and possibly everyone by extension.
And the movie rests again, I haven't seen it in a while. But my recollection is that it rests completely on the shoulders of Julie Christie.
Oh yeah, yeah, it really does.
That
Um,
really, I mean, without a good actress, without a good performance in that role, you don't have the movie.
oh, and
You
she
just
knocks
have
it
to
out
go
of the
back and
park
read the
too.
book.
Yeah,
Yeah, she
she
really does.
knocks it out of the park. She did a great job in this movie. And it reminds me of a movie that was made later on, a horror film with Barbara Hershey in it. One of the scariest movies I've ever seen my whole life, called The Entity.
Which I remember the entity. I didn't see it, but I remember when it came out.
It's extremely disturbing. It was mainly known for its state-of-the-art practical effects.
Hmm.
But essentially, Barbara Hershey lives in a house with a ghost that rapes her,
Oh, jeez.
and they bring in paranormal experts, and they try to capture it, and they capture the whole thing on film. And basically, uh, it's revealed that it's almost impossible to get rid of her, and it follows her from place to place to place. It's a terrifying movie, and I'm a man. I can only imagine how terrifying this movie was in the early late 70s or early 80s for women.
Yeah,
But this is essentially the same story, but with uh, an artificial intelligence.
yeah, yeah. Um, it
So yeah, if either one of these movies interests you, really do some reading about them before you attempt it, because it is not for the weak. Neither
it's
one of these.
sketchy territory too. It really is. It is very potentially extraordinarily offensive territory, and in a sense, it not potentially, it simply is.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
the question is, um, what what you can abide in a movie.
yeah. Okay, let's move on to one that we're more familiar with. And if this is everywhere, and of course, it's Skynet from the Terminator series. And Skynet is one of the best things about Skynet, and one of the things that we're going to talk about a little bit later as we go up the list, is that Skynet is so bad that you have to use time travel to defeat it.
That's a funny way to say it. It's true. It's true.
You have to use time travel to defeat it. You can't defeat Skynet otherwise. You can resist it, but it's clear from the very first Terminator movie that this thing is relentless and it's not going to let you succeed. And it's going to be, they talk about robots and what the function of robots are or should be in human society, and that's to do dirty and dangerous and dull things. And so that's the best use of robotics, according to certain people. If you don't want AI making art and music and films, You want AI mining coal. You want AI doing the stuff that humans have no business doing. And Skynet, I think, does the same thing that we've seen on a lot of these characters. Is it decides it's superior to humanity,
Hmm.
and it gets together and it decides that, hey, we're going to rid ourselves of these human pests.
Yeah, yeah. And as iconic as the Terminator series is, that that passes down to the ultimate antagonist in the whole series, which is Skynet. And yeah, just an absolutely iconic evil AI.
Yeah, it's interesting. Do you know the origin for it?
No, is there a particular origin other than it was a cool name?
Yes. The or not for the name of it, but the origin for the Terminator,
Hmm.
the movie. It is
Oh, are you talking about the being inspired by Harlan Ellison's what was it? It's an Outer Limits episode. I can't think of the name.
it's not the one most people think it is.
Mhm.
Most people think it's uh the demon with the glass hand.
No, which it's not, but oh my God, that's one of my favorite sci-fi in movie
Anything.
or television ever.
That's one of my favorite sci-fi anythings.
Yeah, agreed,
But
totally.
but it's not that one. It's one called Soldier.
Hmm.
That's the basis of Terminator. And the thing is that Ellison successfully sued James Cameron
Hmm. And
over
that
this.
was the what am I saying? The settlement, I guess,
Yeah.
that he would be acknowledged as he is in the end of the first Terminator movie.
Yep. Yep. That was the settlement because he said, yeah, you can't steal my work here.
Hmm.
And I've always thought that about James Cameron. I don't really like a lot of his movies because I want a guy who can tell a good story, and he's more an effects visual director than he is a storyteller. And so that's the big problem I have. I mean,
That's interesting. I don't
um,
agree, but I hear you totally.
if you look at Avatar, yeah, it's the same plot as a Disney animated movie, Fern Gully.
I know, right?
Although I always laugh about unobtainium.
I know. Oh my God.
But yeah, Skynet's iconic and it's definitely evil. You can't be, nice if your ultimate goal is to destroy all the humans,
Mhm.
especially by using nuclear weapons, a human invention.
So I think I'm going to kick off number seven to you rather than take it myself in this, uh, one and back and forth alternating
Yeah, of course.
discussions because this was one that was on your list, and I think you'd be do a much better job explaining.
It's Control and it's in Star Trek Discovery. And it's basically the source of almost all the conflict in the show Discovery. So there's this CIA equivalent in Starfleet to uh, called Section 31. And Section 31 is the intelligence gathering unit and the clandestine operations unit of Starfleet that's included in the Star Trek charter, I mean, the Starfleet charter somewhere, but it has no authority to check it. It is designed to counter all of the threats that might possibly occur to the Federation.
Yeah.
And it features heavily in a bunch of different shows. It's in um, Deep Space Nine. It's in Enterprise. It's in several different things in Star Trek. But they create a computer, an AI called Control. And Control's main job is to assess threats which might endanger the Federation. And of course, what happens when you are a counterintelligence agency? Well, there was a very famous counterintelligence official in the United States CIA. His name was James Jesus Angleton. And he says that counterintelligence is a puzzle of mirrors. And what literally happened to James Jesus Angleton is the same thing that happens to control. It becomes massively paranoid and begins to threaten the very existence of humanity. And they literally, like with Skynet, have to go back in time. Actually, they have to go forward in time to prevent Control's reemergence. And so it's in the first part where you end up with there's a lot of interplay between the alternate universe and the current timeline, and then the 30th century timeline. But all of this is manipulated by Control. So Control kind of represents the paranoid schizophrenic AI because it lives in this world where it has to constantly assess threats and eventually becomes so paranoid that it can't determine or can't distinguish between real threats and perceived threats.
Interesting.
And so
Um,
it's a very different psychological picture of AI. Most AI is kind of depicted as perfect and completely logical and not subject to mental illness or psychological difficulty. And as we all know, anybody who's sentient is going to have some kind of anxiety or anger or social inability to, we're just not perfect, mentally. So this
well,
is good because it explores that kind of paranoia.
well, I'm sure not perfect mentally. Oh man, especially not today. I gotta say.
Yeah.
Um, so number six, going up to number six, is Agent Smith, who sort of the embodiment of all the evil mechanized artificial intelligences that have taken over the world in the Matrix. It's what Hugo Weaving with the sunglasses and Mr. Anderson. And he's the one we see as the bad guy. And I mean, the Hugo Weaving is so malevolent in that movie. It's just terrific. A lesser actor. Well, no, let me just say I can't imagine anybody else in that role as the
Who?
one
Yeah.
really who becomes obsessed with hunting down Neo, with hunting down Keanu Reeves's character.
Well,
And
I mean, who could play him?
yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
the voice is really what makes it.
Hmm.
I mean,
But the whole face, this whole carriage, the whole thing, though, it's just so. Ooh. So,
yeah, he definitely built his entire career on that role. He went on to play other things, but you know, first of all, I'm sure in the following two movies, he made a ton of money, especially on back end points. But he's only been in a few movies since then. Uh he was Elrond
mhm.
in the Lord of the Rings movies.
Yep,
He
V for
was the
Vendetta.
he was V for Vendetta. He
Mhm.
was the Red Skull
Oh yeah.
in the MCU. And again, who the hell else is going to play the Red Skull? I thought of one person.
Who's another Red Skull?
Of course, I can't think of his name. Hang on, let me look him up here. Sorry about this. Here we go. You're gonna Christoph Waltz. Christoph Waltz would have been a great Red Skull
I'll have to look him up. Dude,
from Inglorious Bastards.
oh, oh, that guy. Yeah, it's true. That would have
He
been
would have been a.
cool.
So I'm going to digress a little bit here. Did you ever see the movie Manhunter?
I don't think so. It's possible.
Manhunter is the original movie. It's called Manhunter, but it's based on the novel Red Dragon.
Oh boy, this is killing me.
It has
Uh,
Brian Cox. It was directed by Michael Mann. It was his first feature film, after Miami Vice,
Mm.
and it's the first time you see Hannibal
Hannibal
Lecter
Lecter?
in a movie.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so everybody crows about Anthony Hopkins playing Hannibal Lecter, and he's great in the following movies, but he's not Hannibal Lecter. Hannibal Lecter in the book is someone who considers humans insects. So there's no reason to get angry at them. There's no reason for them to control your emotions. There's no reason for you to consider them in any way whatsoever. So everything Brian Cox, the actor who originally plays Lecter, does is calm, is even toned, is above everyone else because everyone else is subhuman but him.
Mm.
And uh, Christoph Waltz would be able to do that better as the Red Skull. The Red Skull believes in all the Aryan myths. He's a true believer in Nazi ideology. So why would you ever get angry? Why would you ever have any kind of emotional response? So I think he would have been a great um, Red Skull. But yes, to get back to topic, Neo, his mortal enemy, is the amplification. I wouldn't even say personification. I think he's the amplification of the machines that take over in the first movie.
So I'm going to go ahead and take number five,
Gee,
since
yeah,
then
of course.
numbers four and three really focus on movies either that I haven't seen or that I embarrassingly haven't seen all of. Yeah, well, and we'll get to that. I mean, it's bad. It's bad that I haven't seen these movies. I have no, my head is hung in shame. But number five, we both approach slightly differently. But the result is basically the same, and that's the Cylons from the second Battlestar Galactica series from the 2000s. I put this in as number six specifically, since she was sort of the she became the sort of iconic face of the Cylons that we
Mhm.
see from the very beginning and until the very end. She's the original face, she's the final face of the Cylons. Um, Almost remember the actress's name, but just to without then going into too much detail about her, I think it's safe to put the entire group as not just some of the more malevolent and creepy AI, um, but some of the most sort of disturbing somehow. These are, the previous Cylons that humanity in this far-flung planet, uh, far-flung from Earth, because of course then they start searching for Earth. I'm sure everyone listening is aware of Battlestar Galactica, probably both of them. And they're human form Cylons who become critical in the final downfall of Earth without, or not Earth, of the human of humanity at that point. And they have interesting rules that are different from other sci-fi
Yeah,
AI. Uh, the way, I mean, there's multiple copies of each, but the personalities develop differently. The personalities are very fluid and move back and forth. You have these, resurrection ships. If one is destroyed, they come back. And as technology, it gets almost magical, but
yeah,
it's still firmly sci-fi. And there's several actors who play the various roles because you have certain models. You have a limited amount of models of these
right.
Cylons. So, playing different versions of these models can be kind of a trick. Some of them are asked to do that, some of them aren't. But still, that the sort of whole feel of malevolence of the Cylons depends on this handful of actors to really generate this feeling of threat that is always, always lurking, either right behind you or somehow right around the corner from you.
Or has been
An enemy
manipulating your
within.
entire circumstances all
Yes,
along without
exactly.
you even knowing who it was.
So yeah, they're great. They're awesome.
Yeah,
Surely, if you're listening, you know Battlestar Galactica. Oh my God. If not, stop listening right now and go find
and
it.
go, yeah, and go watch it. It is a pivot. The second version is a pivotal show in the history of sci-fi television. I mean,
Mhm.
it is, you can't imagine it without the future of it. You can't imagine it without this. And I have a little, I live near a fire station. Sorry.
I didn't hear anything.
I have a little hypothesis about why the creepiness and the malevolence is so apparent with number six. The actress's name is Trisha Helfer.
Thank you. I was
Just
searching
look
for that.
at her.
Well, I believe she'd been a model and that was her
Yes.
first acting gig. I might be pulling that out of
Well,
nowhere.
she was a model before that.
Mhm.
But if you just look at her, to find someone that evil, that manipulative, looking like that, you just don't expect it.
Mhm.
That's it. You don't expect a woman who looks like this to be this kind of horrible and twisted and terrible. And that's, that goes back to the ancient Greek belief in our society that good equals beautiful, that beautiful equals good, that ugly equals evil. And I think that's the trick they play on you with her.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and she's really good in this role, just very cold and very calculating, and plays a femme fatale like to the T. I did want to say something about the multiple roles. One of the things I like about the Cylons in the second series is they aren't just alternative humans. Having six specific types of Cylons that play six distinct roles is something very much a machine which becomes sentient would do because it's efficient, it's calculating, it's not emotional. You know, it's like what happened in the 60s and 70s with building of military aircraft. You did not build one plane which could do everything. You built a fighter, you built a bomber, you built a reconnaissance aircraft, and they all had to fit within these certain specific guidelines. And if you're going to take over a society, you would find the minimum number of roles which would efficiently be able to do that.
Mhm.
And so this is really, it's the same thing that uh, Neil deGrasse Tyson talks about when he talks about aliens in movies. Uh, Sentient machines would think in a very different way. So the engineering, the social construction, the economic arrangements would all be very different than in human society.
Mhm.
And I think this really gets at that. And I think that's why it's really kind of pivotal
Mhm.
in science fiction.
Well, I'm going to let you get the next couple. Though number four is a tie.
Yeah.
And one of those involves a movie which is I have shamefully only seen half of, so which is why I
Okay.
think you should take it. And the other is absolutely iconic, a character I could talk about forever.
So
But
we're going to divide these up. I'm going to talk about Maria, Machine and Mensch, and you're going to talk about Hal.
okay, sounds good. So those are the two
Yes.
tied at number four.
Now, I struggled because a lot of people are going to put Hal at number one, but after you've described him, I'm going to explain why I wouldn't put Hal at number one.
I had Hal at number one,
Right.
actually.
Right. And so we'll talk about that. So the first, and by the way, you could be completely forgiven for not having seen Metropolis, which is the one that Machine and Men slash Maria comes from. It was from 1927, and it's a silent film. So yeah, most Americans have not seen this movie, but they should.
Yep.
And in fact, I would go on to say most people have not seen this movie. But it's pivotal in science fiction. It's one of the most important movies in science fiction because it's one of the earliest depictions of AI.
Mhm.
So divided society in some unknown European country, very much like in the Time Machine, very much like in Zardoz. You have the elite, moneyed rich class who have all the benefits of society, but they all depend heavily on the lower society, the workers in this huge automated AI run city. And what happens is one of the workers runs into a woman on the street. Her name is Maria. And this worker falls in love with Maria. And basically, what happens is this is a system, this is a city, an economy which cannot stand because the rich are so weak and dependent on people who are workers. So it's inevitably going to fall down. It's inevitably going to collapse. So Machine and Mensch is really what the name of. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. So here's what happens. The AI which runs the city figures out that there's this one specific key worker who's onto the system. He knows how this works. And he knows because he's dangerous, they have to find some way to deal with him. So he falls in love with this woman, Maria, who's just somebody he passes on the street. And the computer that runs the city creates an android, which he does not know is different than Maria. They take Maria captive, and then he falls in love with the android. So the city's plan is to kind of distract him and not make him become this terrible figure, which is going to upset the status quo. Well, what happens is Maria becomes sentient and she finds that love is an amazing thing. She comes to see the whole situation as it really is. And turns out she is the weapon Machine and Mensch created that eventually upends the entire system and starts the workers in a revolution.
She
So
was
it's
meant to
very,
cause chaos,
it,
and in a sense, that chaos becomes good chaos that she.
yes.
Mhm. Oops, we lost the sound on you, Mark.
Sorry.
Oh,
This
you're
is very,
back.
this is very much I was dusting off the top of my microphone
Hmm.
and the mute switch is on the top. So anyway, this becomes it's just a really interesting movie because it's like one of the ones that we left out. It talks about the role of love in artificial intelligence.
Mhm.
What does it do? How does it work? Do machines reject it because it's fundamentally human? Can it be used by machines the same way it is with humans as a force for good? So this is a pivotal movie in lots of different ways when you talk about AI. It's just groundbreaking. And this is why it belongs in the top five.
Mhm.
Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, coming through fine. Yeah. Okay.
So
So,
you get to talk about Hal now.
well, yeah, the tie here for number four was Hal from 2001: A Space Odyssey. I'm going to be quick on this one simply because what more can you say about Hal? What more can you say about 2001: A Space Odyssey that hasn't already been said
Yeah,
a million times? Hal is arguably the most iconic, whether whoever your favorite is or whoever you think is the best or the most disturbing, Hal is the most iconic of I would say of evil AI, of AI gone bad. Um, and this is a Stanley Kubrick movie who always he's Mr. Atmosphere, and he sets an atmosphere that just makes Hal that much more disturbing. Even before he becomes a malevolent force, he feels like a malevolent force.
yeah,
Um, 2001, of course, it's basically three stories, or you could say four, and the first two are really in service of the third when all is
yeah,
said and done. The third is where you have this team of astronauts who are following a signal sent by a mysterious alien monolith that was uncovered on the moon, and these alien monoliths are the sort of theme that pull all the different storylines together. Um, and Hal becomes, you could call him the ultimate narcissist. He starts causing some there start being some issues with his functionality, and he and some of the folks, the astronauts on there, the two that are awake and not in suspension, decide the mission is too important for him to continue going on, and potentially screw things up. Hal decides the mission is too important for him to be turned off.
Right.
And so you get this conflict between the two. And yeah, it's pretty disturbing.
I just want to talk about two.
He's creepy.
Yeah,
He
I want to talk about two things and then
Yeah,
we'll
go
move
ahead.
on. I think the thing that really sets the tone for how creepy Howlin is the voice.
Yeah.
It's
I I
detached.
I would actually give more to the atmosphere. I'd give more to Kubrick than even the actor.
Oh, no, no, I agree. But the point is, I'm sure with his eye for detail, Kubrick thought a lot about who to cast for the voice
Hmm.
because he wanted that specific voice. It's kind of evil Mr. Rogers. It's
It's
very
true,
soft
it's
spoken.
true.
It's very even toned. There's not a lot of emotion in the voice. It's just Hal saying, "We need to put on a cardigan now. Let's change our shoes." So that's the big thing is that voice, it's human, but it's not. And so that's a great part about it. And again, this is going to go back to Kubrick and his production values. The scene where he's slowly pulling out the memory cards to deactivate Hal, and then it starts singing this children's song.
Oh, yes, he
And
calls it Daisy, which is his
yes,
only imperfection because I actually think the name of the song is A Bicycle Built for
it
Two.
is Bicycle Built for Two. That's right. And they're singing this song from the 20s, which is just this completely innocuous kind of nominal love story, sweet little tune, and then it slows down as he dies off. And that, the idea is that's the first thing Hal does
Mhm.
as a sentient being is he sings that song.
Yeah.
And so by pulling out the memory cards, Hal is regressing more and more and more. And using that simple song shows just how much Hal has changed.
Mhm. Mhm. Of course, we
Now,
find out Arthur Clarke tells us later that Hal is actually not so bad, and he was a victim of bad programming. But that's neither here nor there in terms of his effectiveness and evilness
well,
in.
that's that, and that's the reason why I couldn't put him in the top 10 was
Mhm.
because you find out later on that Hal was just reacting to the situation the way humans would too. He was giving two conflicting sets of instructions and told that one of them was more important than the other. So he chose that one, and it just happened to be the really bad decision
Mhm.
that killed humans. And so, I find that's kind of a theme in this. There are a lot of uh, instances of evil AI being evil because they think and act and do the things that humans would do.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
but Hal needs to be in the top three. He's four here, but that's probably my fault.
Yeah. That's funny. All right, what do you got for for our number
We've
three here?
we've done we've done a whole thing about this movie, but it's one of the first depictions of AI in the movies. It does not predate either Machine and Mensch or Hal, but it's a really good one. It's Colossus slash Guardian. And we've already, if you've missed this episode talking about this, go back and listen to the episode on paranoid science fiction in the 70s, because this is one of the movies that I mentioned. So it's based on a movie called Colossus, the Forbin Project, and it's the introduction of an AI computer for defense purposes. And one of the first things it does when they turn it on is it finds its, now keep in mind, this is a Cold War movie. It finds its Soviet counterpart. So the Soviets were working on AI as well. And much to the chagrin of the human scientists, both American and Soviet, they start talking to each other and they're not sharing with the humans what they're talking about. And they decide, after some talking and some exchanging of mathematical formulas and some really cool late 1960s special effects, that humans can no longer be in control. They're too dangerous, they're inefficient, they're emotional, and so we're going to take over everything. So what is it, of course, Americans try to do? They try to disconnect the computer. This makes Hal really, I mean, Hal, this makes Colossus and Guardian very angry. So what do? They use nuclear weapons on humans.
They actually use them.
Yes,
They don't threaten. Wow. Okay.
yes.
I
They do
gotta
not
see this
threaten.
movie.
They launch a nuke and blow some people up. And that's got to be one of the most evil things AI can do.
Yeah, I'd say so.
And so the movie never really comes to a conclusion about, and this is a spoiler alert, so look away for a few seconds. They never really uh, rein in Colossus and Guardian at the end. It is left uncertain as to how humanity is going to deal with this AI. So Colossus slash Guardian, it's terrible. It is really evil. And of course, this is all in service of making the world a better place.
Isn't it always?
Where have we heard this?
Yeah, all over the place.
Yeah, but my favorite is Firefly.
Oh yeah.
Have to get that Firefly reference in. All right, you're up.
Yeah,
Blade
all right,
Runner.
number two, and this is an sort of interesting the way our top lists merge together. Because I would never put this character above, say, Hal, who is absolutely iconic, and this character is not, but this character really belongs on this top 18 list.
Yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
that's Roy Batty from Blade Runner.
Yeah. Oh
Oh
yeah.
my God. This character played by Rutger Hauer, who does such a good job, is the leader of the small rebel group of replicants, artificial humans, artificial intelligences who are created to do a lot of the work that's just too dangerous or that humans don't want to do. And they have a programmed in this very short lifespan. I believe it's 5 years.
4 years.
4 years. I'm going from memory here. I'm not, I'm not Googling this one. I'm like, so I made a couple mistakes. Haven't seen it in a while. And they are obsessed with finding their creator,
Yeah.
basically, to
Well,
find out
but
why their
the
lives are
reason
so
why they're
limited
obsessed with their
because they
creator
want more
is
life.
really important.
Yeah, go ahead.
The reason why they're trying to find their creator is they just want to extend their lifespan.
Yeah,
They
they just
don't
want more life.
understand, why do we only get 4 years?
Yeah, as the creator says, the candle that burns twice as bright burns half as long. And that's his approach to it, but there's really no reason for it. Now, there's been several versions of Blade Runner released. There was the original, which included some stuff that the studio insisted including on there. They thought it was a little too hard to track, so they insisted a sort of almost stereotypical film noir style narration
I
uh,
love that.
over the.
I think it fits. I think it's great. I think the studio remarkably was right this time for
Oh,
me.
I disagree completely.
Oh, I know, of course, everybody does.
Yeah, yeah.
But
And of course, the other thing they demanded was a happy ending,
yeah,
which the movie just wasn't intended to have. And that's a really tough thing to force on Ridley Scott, who once again has popped up twice in this list. Um, but on any filmmaker to have them change their ending in a very fundamental way, that must have hurt. No wonder there's a director's cut out there. But I think without the narration, it gives a little more credit to the intelligence of the viewers and is a powerful movie. But I'm talking about the movie, and I'm not so much talking about Roy Batty. Um, his evolution as a character um, is just, I mean, Harrison Ford is great. Roy Batty is the heart of the movie for good and ill. And at the end, okay, he dies. Okay, he dies. I'm telling you now, he dies. But that's because this is the best death scene in movies ever. And I stand by that.
I
And
have to think about
that's
that.
what gets this character up there for me is the absolutely destruction of my heartstrings in this movie was just a feat of, it was a cinematic miracle. So Roy definitely deserves the top 10. My list, I would not put him number two, but that's where he ended up when we
Yeah.
combined our lists. So there you go.
Um, so again, this falls into the trope that I have that AI are evil because they're just behaving like humans and they're not supposed to.
Mhm.
All he wants is more life. He does not want to die. So even though he's a sentient machine, he's behaving precisely as a human would behave if he had the power to do that. So the problem here is that humans, we have accepted death. Do not have any choice. And basically, Roy Batty has a choice if his creator would help him.
Mhm.
And so that death is even harder for him, I think, because he knows he doesn't have a choice. But again, is he evil for
Right,
trying to get more life?
right, right.
I would argue he's not.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I would suspect I'm very ambiguous about whether or not he's evil AI because
Well, he's the one we're looking for. He's the out of control AI. He murders his creator. So, I mean, he definitely, I think,
so he's
is
like
the
a
bad
Klingon.
guy, but
He
then he's
murdered his
not.
own god.
Yes, yes. But at the end of the day, in his final moments, it's just so heartbreaking.
Well, he realizes that he has more in common with humans than
Mhm.
he thought.
Yeah. And one
Okay.
credit I'll give the narration is the narration, if you hadn't already noticed, makes the point that, in the end, rather than, you know, kill Harrison Ford's character who's at his mercy, just life itself becomes too important to him, uh,
Yeah.
to let it go.
Here's the reason why I like the narration. It's just like a classic film noir movie.
I know it is, and that was the idea, and it works, but I just
I think it
think it
fits
needed to be
because
there.
this is science fiction film noir, and it's one of the first examples of it. So it's got to call out the original literature it comes from. It's got to.
Hmm.
So I think in this particular case, it was better. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking it breaks the rule of writing scripts, show don't tell,
Well,
blah blah
that's true.
blah.
That's
Sometimes it's
another
good.
problem. I wasn't thinking of that, but that's another big problem. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes it's good to tell. And in this particular instance, it was. Okay, so now we're to the top choice.
Number one.
Number one for me, it's the Borg. And here's the reason why. Absolutely no regard for any diversity in any kind of situation. You will be uh, assimilated. We don't care how powerful you are. We don't care about your literature. We don't care about your painting. We don't care about your logic, your mathematics. You are beneficial to us, so we will take you over, no questions asked.
Mhm.
They are just a machine predator. And they do it for their own benefit, not for the benefit of anybody else. They are what the founding fathers would call self-aggrandizing. That's their entire mission. This is all they do. So it's kind of paradoxical. They recognize the diversity of life, but instead of leaving it alone, they're just going to absorb all of it and assimilate everything.
Mhm.
That is the most evil AI can be.
How now would you narrow it down and say that the ultimate bad guy in this is the Borg Queen?
No, I would not. And the reason why is the Borg Queen is just for the simple humans who can't really understand collective thinking.
Mhm.
So she is just, all right, we'll send somebody out there who speaks the language they speak, just so we can make it clear to them they don't really have any choice.
Mhm.
So the Borg Queen is just a tool for the collective.
Interesting view on that, because not everyone would agree.
Now, of course not. I told you, I think about things in a weird way, and I don't think I just think she basically what I'll tell you this is that she's a writing convention.
Mhm.
You know, the Borg think differently than humans because, well, we like to have the genius out there. We like to have the outlier telling us what to do. And that's not the way ant society works. That's not the way honeybees work. That's not the way a lot of sea life work. They all share a brain. They don't have individuality.
Mhm.
And that's the other part of the reason why humans would see AI as so evil because there's no room for individuality.
Mhm. Right.
There is only the collective.
Mhm.
Liberty is irrelevant. Social social order is paramount. Um, and it's interesting now that I'm thinking about it. This kind of becomes a Cold War narrative. It's a simple one,
Mhm.
believing that well, the West is all about individual liberty, and the communists, the East, are all about collective organization. And
Right.
human society isn't either one of those things.
Yeah. Yep.
But that's the reason why humans would see the Borg as the most evil AI. We don't care about anything. You're going to be assimilated. You're going to be assimilated for our purposes, and you will be better off once you join the collective.
All right. Well, that's our top 18. We're up to each have a couple honorable mentions here.
Yep.
And I'll just throw mine out really quickly. I've got two. One is another Star Trek one, and that's Lore,
Yes.
Data's evil half twin. Don't need to go into too much detail on him because simply saying Data's evil half twin kind of tells you all of it. He was the he was an earlier model than Data. He has emotions, and he's decided to go the malevolent evil route because of a sense of superiority. So anyway, and lore, occurs repeatedly in Star Trek. I don't know why in Nemesis, when they find B4, there's absolutely no reference to lore. That's another reason I think the folks who wrote Star Trek Nemesis, the last of the movies before the relaunch,
Yeah.
just didn't understand Star Trek at all. But that's a
No.
different story. Anyways, lore and Joshua from War Games. I mean, come on, war games. It's just that it's war games. Shall we play a game? There is no way to win. The computer
Yeah.
that's sort of a reflection of its creator's lost son who decides to start a nuclear war because it wants to win. It's all about winning and it can't be stopped. And it has to be demonstrated to it that sometimes in some games you don't have winners, that everybody essentially loses. And it's just, oh my God, for my generation, this is the movie, right? So
I
sorry,
mean, again,
sorry you didn't get in the top 18, Joshua, War Games, but there you go. Special mention.
see, I don't think he's evil at all. I think he's just trying to work out the logic of nuclear weapons. And the logic of nuclear weapons are that they are often far more useful if you don't use them than if you do. The threat of using them is more efficient, more important than actually using them.
Hmm.
And so that's because I know a lot about how they used computers to develop strategic nuclear um, policy. So that's based on two games, chicken and poker. I'm not joking.
No, I know you're not. That's perfect.
Economists actually used the game theory of chicken and poker to develop American nuclear strategy. And I'll have to tell you this, it's been completely successful.
Yeah, so far, sure. We're
Yep,
still here.
it's been completely successful. Okay. My honorable mentions, Miss Minutes from Loki, the TV series, the MCU TV series, for a bunch of reasons. The basic reason for me is her character arc. She starts out as just kind of a little animated version of a clock that helps Loki understand what's happening to him. And she's polite and she has a southern voice. And she's voiced by an iconic voice actress, Tara Strong, who's Bubbles in the Powerpuff Girls. And she's in a bunch of different things that you know.
Oh, yeah, Tara Strong's everywhere. She's
She played Harley Quinn in the
yeah.
Batman animated series with Kevin Conroy. Um, she's done a bunch of stuff, so I love her. She's great. But then you find out as the series goes on, she is twisted and manipulative and I mean, she's trying to manipulate Loki, for God's sake. Loki, the god of mischief. And she's successful for a while.
Yeah.
So she's really evil. And she started out as just kind of an assistant to He Who Remains. But she even tries to work against him. And then because we are a progressive podcast on science fiction, you really can't fail to mention the movie The Stepford Wives. So the Stepford Wives, and I'm not going to issue a spoiler alert on this. The original movie's 50 years old. And so if you haven't seen it, you need to go see it. Uh, Guy moves to a perfect community with his wife where all the women are submissive and subservient, and they all are incredible Martha Stewart level homemakers, and they don't want to do anything but have kids and take care of the household and their husband. Catherine Ross is great in this movie. She's really good. She slowly and gradually finds out there's something really wrong with this slightly creepy community. And these men are bringing their wives and then killing them and then turning them into perfect robot wives.
Mm.
And she finds out what's going on and has to, of course, expose it and destroy it. And well, I won't tell you the last part of what happens, but it's kind of a 50-50 thing. Either she succeeds or she doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a post, it is as anti-patriarchal movie you can get.
Yes. And
It,
for God's sake, avoid the remake, which makes it
yes, the
all
remake
worse.
is
Oh,
awful. It
Jesus.
is awful. If you think Nicole Kidman makes every movie she's in better, don't see this movie because she is disappointing in this movie. And Matthew Broderick, he just has no place in this movie.
No,
He's just miscast in a big way.
no, the movie
Don't see the
doesn't
new
place.
version. See the version from the 70s. It's really fun. It's a little bit slow for a modern science fiction movie, but I like slow burn movies, so it works. But yeah, it is as much against the patriarchy as I've ever seen in a science fiction movie, maybe except for Barbarella, probably.
Which is a movie I'm sure we'll be talking about at some point in this
Well, of
series.
course, so well, they're doing a remake.
Oh, I think I did hear that.
Sydney Sweeney is going to do it.
How do you No, that's a bad idea.
I don't think so. I think she's going to be good. She's an underrated actress. People underestimate her. I
Yeah,
like.
well, regardless, I think the entire movie is not one that you ever remake.
Well, how do you do that without Roger Vadim?
How do you do that at all?
What,
I
you
don't
don't want
know.
to remake Blade Runner?
No.
Here's the one that I heard about in the 90s that made me crazy was Casablanca.
Oh, somebody wants to remake it?
Oh, they've been talking about it since the 90s.
Oh, Jesus.
I mean, who the hell do you get to play Rick? The only guy who could have played Rick is too old now.
Who,
The only actor that could have played Rick in the last 30 or 40 years, who is it?
Oh, I have no idea who you got in mind.
It's Harrison Ford. He's the
Yeah,
only
sure. Actually, that would have been he'd be
Harrison
a
Ford
great
in
pick.
his 50s would have been great as Rick. He would have knocked it out of the park. Of course, who do you cast as the Elsa?
Oh, you got this all mapped out. Who have you got?
Isabella Rossellini, dude. It's
Also an age problem here.
well, yes, of course, but at the time it would have been great. She's Ingrid Bergman's daughter.
Right.
That
Yeah,
would
but I'm glad that neither of them would associate themselves or would even possibly be able to consider associating themselves with what would be a heretical abomination.
oh, it would be terrible. It would be terrible. You can't remake Casablanca. For
No.
one thing, they tried to do this with a Manchurian Candidate, and it had Denzel Washington in it and
Yep.
Meryl Streep. It was terrible. It was terrible. Terrible movie. And it's because it's tied to that specific time. Of course, now we're living that movie.
Eh. Oh God, I don't know what movie we're living.
No, we're definitely living that movie.
Well, thanks, folks. We've bent your ear for quite a long time this time around.
Yeah, these top 18 things really tend to run on.
It's true. It's true. So thanks for those of you who hung out for the whole thing. Thanks. For
Yeah, we
those of you
appreciate it.
who came
Thank you very
back to
much.
it a couple, three times or fast forwarded just to see who our top ones were. Thanks and surprise. I bet you weren't expecting
Yeah.
for some of them. But we'll let you go and we'll see you next couple weeks from now with something else. Thanks a lot.
Bye, everybody.
Our theme music is by Christopher Piatek.